Hi, and welcome to the Grace Cycle Show. I'm your host, Karen Dittman, and my heart for this show is to help you stop striving and struggling in life and instead step into the freedom of growing closer to God through His grace. You don't need to try harder. You just need to try different. Because sometimes life can feel like a crazy hamster wheel. It's spinning and you wish you could get off, but it just won't stop. If you feel that way, I invite you to take my quiz, How Fast is Your Hamster Wheel Spinning? It will only take you 50 seconds. You can find it at hamster.onefit-wellness.com or click on the link in the show notes. This quiz will help you see what's spinning your hamster wheel, how it's impacting you, and you can discover what you can do to help slow it down. In today's episode, I have a sweet interview with Sandra Hartlieb, another author who I met recently at a conference. Sandra is an award-winning biblical scholar and author of 3 books. She is a national speaker, storyteller, and educator who specializes in Christian creative arts. Sandra has led mission trips to women's prisons in Indiana and Kentucky, to Appalachia, and to Kenya, Africa. She uses drama and storytelling as a means of spreading hope and inspiration. Sandra has a BA in Communication and Theater from Indiana University, where she earned the Theater Program Award for Academic Achievement. She also has certification in Pastoral Ministry from Notre Dame University. Sandra's dramatic performances of biblical women from the Old and New Testaments shed light on timeless stories and lessons contained in the Scriptures. Sandra's insights and wisdom inspire others to unlock the mysteries of scriptural stories, to explore their faith in meaningful ways, and to discover new pathways for personal growth. Sandra's life experiences have helped her to grow in her own faith and to find a variety of ways to magnify the Lord. Her performances offer inspiration with a generous helping of entertainment. So I invite you to listen in on my conversation with Sandra Hartlieb. Well, Sandra, thank you so much for joining me. And I am really excited to hear more of your story of how God has shown up for you by His grace and His power in your life. So why don't you just go ahead and share with us your story?
My story has a lot of ups and downs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a very large family, and we have been so graced and gifted by God. Among my brothers and sisters, there's a musician and songwriter, there's an artist, a sculptor, a woodworker, a comedian, a writer, so many, and I'm the actor in the family. But it's amazing that creativity has really been a hallmark of my family life. And the other kind of through line that goes along with that is my eyesight has always been very low. It's genetic. I was born with very low eyesight. It affects my corneas. I've had a cornea transplant
Oh, wow.
and a number of other corneal surgeries and so forth to try and halt the progression of losing my sight altogether. So I like to tell people that my world looks like a Monet painting.
Okay.
So those kind of blurry water lilies, you know.
Mm. Well, that helps people to understand a little bit what the
Yeah,
world
I
looks like
hope
to you.
so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But there's always been obstacles, as everyone has challenges and obstacles through their lives. I got to a point where I felt like God was finished with me, you know. And this was in 2009. And I had a really great job. I was working as an advocate for persons with disabilities, and I was writing plays for them. They were doing a lot of creative activities and so forth. This job was about a half an hour from where I live, and there was no public transportation. And it was time for me to renew my driver's license. When I knew that I wasn't going to pass the vision test.
Mm.
But I wasn't going to give up like that. I thought I would just fake my way through it, you know? And I'm just kind of looking at, I know this is a podcast, so you don't see me, but I was looking intently into the vision reader and calling out 7, 3, 2. At which point the lady said, "Honey, they're letters."
Oh my.
And that was the end of my driver's license. I tried to keep the job I had, but it was very difficult to get rides there. And I knew that I was going to have to give it up. And I just fell into a deep, dark pit. And I said, "Okay, God, you must be finished with me. That's all there is, you know?" But God had another plan.
Yeah.
It's funny how he does that, you know?
Mm. It's also funny how we get stuck in that story that, oh, I can't get this thing right, so God must be done with me, right?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
And this was the path that I thought I was supposed to be on forever. This path was going, and I've learned since that there are seasons when we are in the right spot and we're doing what God wants us to do, but there comes a time when God needs us to make a shift.
Hmm.
And if we're not listening carefully, if we're not paying attention, then I think sometimes God gives us a little bit of a jolt to say, "Hey, listen to me." And I realized that God wanted me to do something else, wanted me to turn in a new direction. I had always been a reader and a lover of scripture. And what occurred was when I left that job that I loved, I very quickly got a job at my own church. And I was teaching new Christians the faith. And I was teaching Bible studies. And I was facilitating ministry programs. And all of that was laying a foundation, laying a framework for me for where I am now in my life. I think sometimes I look at obstacles like roadblocks, but instead of roadblocks, we need to look at them as stepping stones.
That is a beautiful way to put it. Instead
And
of
yeah,
roadblocks, they're stepping
roadblocks
stones.
turn into stepping stones.
Mm. Can you
Um,
take me back a little bit to that moment, that jolt when you said, "Ah, I'm not going to have my driver's license.
right.
I can't work this job anymore." And just share a little bit about where God met you in that and how he helped you to see that he wasn't done with you.
Mhm. There was a very specific moment. And like I say, I was doing what I felt was very important work, working with persons with disabilities, helping them to have a good lifestyle and so forth. So, like I said, I fell into a depression and ended up going to my doctor. And he said, "Well, we could try some medication, but why don't we have you talk with someone, a counselor?" And so he did send me to a psychologist, and it was a woman, very nice woman. And we sat down, and I thought, "Oh boy, I know what this is going to be. She's just going to say, rehash your childhood and what kind of trauma did you have? And all of these things lead to this and that and everything." And I go, "I don't even know why I'm here." But she didn't do that. After we kind of got to know each other a little bit, she said out of the blue, "Well, you have grandchildren, don't you?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And she said, "Don't you just love them to pieces?" Well, I said, "Of course I do. They're the most wonderful." And she said, "Didn't you just love them from the moment they were born?" And I said, "Of course I did." And then she said, "I don't know why they hadn't done anything yet."
Mm.
She identified for me that I was tying up my value and my worth in what I was doing instead of realizing that God loves me just like I am,
Mm.
however I am, with whatever limitations I may have. God loves me.
Wow.
It was a moment.
Yeah, and I imagine that would be a moment where you saw this roadblock just kind of go, whoa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a funny thing too, because when you discover that you can knock those roadblocks down and take a step forward, then there's light, and you realize that the dark tunnel, you're coming out of it, and you can move forward. So, like I said, within a very short time, I was offered this job with my church, and it was marvelous. But I do believe that God gave me the job of teaching the faith so that I would learn the faith,
Mm.
that I would learn to trust Him, that I would learn to rely on Him instead of my own gifts and talents, you know. And so it was a great time. It was about 10 years that I did that. And then my God called me out again and said, "Hey, time for a shift.
Hmm.
I have you planned, I have you prepared for the next stepping stone."
Oh.
And so that was leaving the security of a job with a regular paycheck and striking out in ministry to write, to speak at women's events, at conferences, at retreats, and to use my own talent that he had given me of drama to perform women in the Bible. And
Mm.
that's kind of my niche. When I go places to give a presentation, it always begins with a woman from the Bible stepping out in her costume and greeting you and telling you her story.
Oh. Do you have a favorite story to tell, a woman from the Bible? There's so many good
um,
ones.
just thinking of these things and what God has done, to bring me to where I am is marvelous. But the very first one that I performed, and so she has lived with me a number of years, is the Samaritan woman, the
Mm.
woman at the well. I performed that character at the Indiana Women's Prison a few years ago. And at the end of the performance, the women there, I did some other things as well, but that was kind of the focal point. And the ladies, the inmates, had arranged to have a little reception and had cookies and punch, and everyone got to socialize a little bit. And one of the inmates came to me, her name was Carla, and she said, "I want to be like that woman." And I said, "Really? Well, how is that?" And she said, "I want to meet Jesus. I want to change my life, and I want to tell other people about him."
Oh,
And I thought, that's my life.
yeah.
She really made me see that's that was me, you know. After I met Jesus, truly, not just on the surface. Oh, I know Jesus. I can tell you all about Jesus. I can tell you his life story. I can tell you the backstory. But that's different than having a relationship with Jesus. And once that happens, then I was able to change my feelings about what my limitations were and go out and tell everyone else what he'd done for me.
Oh, that is great. I love how you relate to her and her story.
Yeah.
And then as you were in that story, you showed someone else that
Mm-hmm.
that can be her story too.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah, I feel like I have the privilege of planting seeds as a speaker that goes to different locations. I'm in Indiana, but I have engagements in Ohio, in Illinois, in Michigan, in Kentucky, in Tennessee, kind of around my Midwest area. So I might be there for an event and then I'm gone. So I only have the opportunity to plant seeds. And often I don't get to see the harvest.
Right.
So that story of Carla in prison, who immediately got the point of that woman's story and how it related to her own life, that was a harvest. That was a beautiful harvest.
Right. That is beautiful. And it's so true that we often don't see the impact of our interactions, our words, whether you're standing in front of an audience or smiling at someone in the grocery store, all of those
Right,
small things
exactly. Uh-huh.
can give
Uh-huh.
somebody hope. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think about a lot. There's a quote from my daughter lives in Cincinnati, and she happens to be the executive director of the Harriet Beecher Stowe House.
Okay.
Harriet Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Right.
And there is a quote from her that is never give up. I'm going to have to read it. I have a coffee cup with it on there. And she said, never give up, for that is just the place and time that the tide will turn. And I think that is so prophetic. That point in my life when I was ready to give up, God saw it as a turning point.
Mm.
And, it took a little help from people, around me to help me to realize that. The doctor, the psychologist, the person at my church, all of these people were collaborating with God to put me back in the place where I needed to be.
Mm.
Mhm.
That is beautiful how you had this community, even if they weren't a community of people who all knew each other, but they were
Yeah,
people surrounding you, supporting
yeah,
you, and showing
yeah,
you God still has a
yeah.
purpose. You can keep
Mhm,
moving, you can keep going.
mhm, mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's
I like to talk to audiences and anyone actually who will listen to me that our happiness doesn't really need to rely on our circumstances. True joy is something from the inside. It's something that we get because of God's grace.
mhm.
Paul himself in the letters, I can't remember which letter it was in, but he talks about the thorn in his side and how he suffered and he begged God to take that away from him. And God said to him, my grace is sufficient for you. So,
Yes.
I've got to live with this limited vision. That's not going to get better. Okay. But it's not taking away my joy. It's not going to take away my joy.
Right. Right. What a powerful example of what I call
Mhm.
reconciliation or accepting the things that we can't change, right? And I
Right.
just had this
Right.
thought for you that, and maybe you've thought this before, you probably have because you're a very wise woman, but I just had this thought for you that the first face you will see truly clearly, the first place you will see perfectly clearly will be when you step into heaven and you see Jesus.
No. Yeah. 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 That is truly awesome.
Mhm.
I think of people that I know who have, various kinds of disabilities, whether it is blindness or being deaf or unable to walk, all those things will fall away when we reach our heavenly home and we will
Yes,
have perfect bodies and we will see and know Jesus perfectly.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's like the years we have on earth are nothing in comparison.
Oh, yeah. I
Even
know.
though it feels like this is all that I know, and it is all that I
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to wrap your mind around eternity.
right?
You know, time without time, time that does not end. We
Right.
are built to think like in linear fashion. This happens and then this happened and then this happened, and everything is in a straight line. But for God, there is no time. He's out of our conception of time, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And so we can't even comprehend what eternity will be like.
That's so true. That's so true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going
Something
back
I
to
just wrote a little blog on is God's not finished with me yet, or God's not done with me yet. Because those were the very words that I had said to myself. Now, I mean, currently, I'm, I am proud to say, 75 years old or young, however you may. Since we're out of time,
right.
that's okay.
You've been
And
around for 75 years.
I've
Old,
been
young,
around for a
whatever.
while. I've been around the block. But I have bad vision, I have bad hearing, I have osteoporosis. So I've had a couple of fractures in my back, and God's not done with me yet.
right.
And so, sometimes I just sit back and think, okay, Jesus, what next? you know, I'm ready. I'm ready.
What a shift in perspective from, back in 2009 when it was like,
Yes.
this
Yes.
is the only way to go. And now
This is it.
it's, what do you have for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's next? What's
Hmm.
coming up?
Yeah.
Right.
I am myself in my late 50s and finding this perspective shift as I get into
Oh.
this, you know, I've got more years behind me than there are ahead, I'm sure.
Ah, yes.
And so, anyway, but just this perspective shift that I can let go of the things that I've been striving for, let go
Mm,
of the things that I've been trying to hold on tightly to and trying to control
mm,
because he's
hmm.
got it
Yes.
and
Yes.
he will accomplish his purpose for
Hmm.
me.
Hmm. That's right.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just have to sit back and let him take over. you know, we
Yeah.
want to direct everything.
Yes. Yes. And that is not easy. It's definitely not
I'm
easy.
one of my things that I've dealt with all of my life too is perfectionism. And I
Hmm.
think maybe a lot of people who, particularly those who are in front of audiences, might suffer from that. Well, I can't do it if it's not perfect. I'm not going to walk out there if I can't do it perfectly. And most of the time, I'm in that frame where I'm giving you my best, Jesus, and you know that. And whether it's perfect or not, it's my best. And
Right.
that's all I have to do. you
Yes.
know,
That's so
not to
true.
say that, I don't backslide and have those weakness moments of thinking, oh, I messed up on that one. Oh dear. I need to go back and do that again. Oh, I really wrecked that, and forget that.
Right.
One of the books that I've written is called In Hot Pursuit: 7 Keys to Unlock True Happiness. And the very first key that I identified for myself is to live in the moment. If it's past, it's done. You cannot change it.
Right.
So don't spend time in anxiety and thinking, oh dear, what people think, and all that stuff. Throw that away because you cannot change it. And then don't spend your time in the future. Sure, we need to be organized and plan and so forth, but don't spend your time there. You have to spend your time right now in the moment, or there's going to be so much you're going to miss. You know, love where you are, love who you are right now.
And Sandra, you just answered that question that I had in the back of my head. I was going to ask you, how would you encourage people to cultivate joy in
Oh,
their life? That's a
yeah,
huge
yeah,
tip. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I'd say that's the very first thing. Live in the moment. When I was in my 20s and 30, hear a little bit more about my story. I got married very soon out of high school, and I had wanted to go to college, but chose a different path. And for many years, I lived in the what if or when I get a chance to go to college, I'm going to be able to do the work that I want to do. When I get a degree, then I'm going to accomplish this, and this because I have that degree. And because I lived in the future, my mind in the future, there was so much in my present that I kind of, lost, frittered away, you know.
Yeah.
I look back on those times now and think, what did I miss out when my kids were growing up? Because I was so focused on what I didn't have to
Mm.
pay attention to what God had given me in this moment. You know, I guess you said I might have some wisdom. I don't know. You probably do accumulate a little wisdom when the more years that you stack up. But
Yeah.
I think that that is one thing that I know. Live this moment for all it's worth, you know,
Mm.
and that's going to
Yes.
give you happiness. Yeah.
Yes. That is a really,
Yeah.
really important thing. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. So, Sandra, let me ask you this. If you could choose one thing that you would like people to take away from our conversation, just one key thing you'd want people to remember, what would that be?
Oh my goodness. I guess, relating to my story, I would say never think that God's done with you. If you are still breathing, God's still got plans for you. So never throw in the towel, never give up. Keep striving to do what the Lord is calling you to do. I have my kind of a purpose that for my ministry is to magnify the Lord. So I look at whatever I choose to do, whether I'm writing today or whether I'm planning for a talk that I'm giving or a character that I'm performing. How does this magnify the Lord? How can I magnify the Lord through what I'm doing? And we can do that every single day. When you're, I'll tell you another little story. Even when you don't, you really physically can't do anything. I have some friends. My faith tradition is Catholic, and I have some sisters, nuns, who are sisters of Providence. And one that I visited quite often was bedridden at the mother house. And I came in one day to see her, and I said, "Well, what are you doing today?" And she said, "Well, I'm working." And I said, "Really?" But no. And she said, "Well, of course, I have work to do every day." And I said, "Well, tell me about it. What kind of work are you doing?" Well, apparently, when people come to visit this beautiful church, there's a box that they can put in prayer requests, and they write them down on a little card. And these sisters who are confined to their bed can't do much of anything for themselves take those little cards and pray.
Mm.
They know that God is still using them.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, here I'm a puddle,
Oh, yeah. I'm
but
not
I
going to
think of
apologize, though.
I think of so many people that have touched my life, that have shown me and taught me what it means to rely completely on God, no
Mhm.
matter what your circumstances are.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you
Welcome.
again,
You're
Karen, for
welcome.
allowing me to just tell my story. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a beautiful story and so many good things in this. So, how can people get a hold of you in your ministry, your books, find out when and where you're speaking, or even invite you to speak? How can people get a hold of you?
That would be awesome. Probably going to my website, and that's very easy. It's www.sandrahartlieb.com. And the Hartlieb is Hartliebe. And also, I have 3 books that are published, and they're on Amazon. And if you go to Amazon and you look for books and write my name in, Sandra Hartlieb, you'll find them.
Great,
So, and
great.
I would love for people to check out my books. Like I said, one of them is on the keys to happiness. My first book is on women who have encountered Jesus in the Bible. So it's stories in the Bible. It's a lot of what I share when I am speaking and giving retreats. And the third book is really a prayer devotion on the Passion of Christ.
Those all sound amazing. I have to get into my
Thank you.
Amazon account later.
Yeah, but on my website, if you go there, there's a couple of places where you click on a little button and contact me. You put your information in, and I will email you or call you back.
Great. I will be sure to put that website in the show notes too, make it easy for
Oh, wonderful.
listeners to click on that and find you. So,
Okay, great.
well, Sandra, thank you so much for this conversation and for just
Thank you.
opening up and sharing your story and the wisdom that God has given you through it. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
So I hope today you heard something to encourage you to see what might feel like a roadblock in your life as actually a stepping stone. And if that's really hard for you because you're feeling stuck and you can't see from the inside what might need to change, let me invite you once again to check out my quiz, How Fast Is Your Hamster Wheel Spinning, at hamster.onefit-wellness.com. This quiz will only take you 50 seconds, and it is a great way to help you figure out your next steps to thrive by living in grace. So that's it for today. Would you take a second to subscribe to the show so you're notified when future episodes come out? And it would mean the world to me if you would rate or review the show, which will help more people to find out about it. So until next time, get curious, stay connected, and live in grace.